So this is the Simsbury Clean Energy Task Force. We do not have a quorum yet, so this is not an official meeting, but we'd like to just continue the discussion. We have from the Clean Energy Task Force, we have Phil Perciello and myself, Mark Scully. From the town, we have Director of Public Works, Tom Roy, and Ray Harris, able assistant. And we have two guests tonight, Susan Olson and Ron Brandis, both from Citizens Climate Lobby. Mm-hmm. And so I know the topic that that you guys from Citizens Climate Lobby have been helping us on is this climate emergency declaration. Mm. And I think I included you, Susan, in the email, and I don't think I included Ron, but maybe you forwarded it to Ron or we can send it to him. But we have a new draft of the climate emergency resolutions. So let me pull mine up. This would be draft, so version 2.
Version 2.
Yep. And we have a one with the changes tracked and one clean. I think for one thing, we can't really make any decisions tonight, and you wouldn't want to without input from more members. But so we can continue the conversation though. You'll see. I know we had some suggestions from our friends at Citizens Climate Lobby. A lot of those are in there. I've actually taken. Should I share my screen maybe? We can look at it.
Sure. Sounds good.
Ooh, beautiful.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
I got the new Big Sur operating system. So amongst other things, you get a new background picture. So it's Big Sur, I guess.
Okay.
So this is the version that shows the changes. Can everybody see it, read it fairly well?
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff. These underlines are not changes. Those are links. Mm-hmm. Did that sound mean somebody joining us or?
Yes. Hi, Roger Coons here. Sorry, I just saw the message that it was moved up.
Hey, Roger, welcome.
Thanks.
So we're having an informal conversation.
Yep. So we're outnumbered now. So we do not have a quorum, Roger.
Okay.
Probably because of the time change. So we can't make any decisions. It's not an official meeting. We could start a meeting if we get Bob or Sherry. I know Tim cannot make it, and Mike is off the committee, off the task force now. But we can still have a conversation. We can't make any decisions. Mm-hmm. So this is the current version of the resolution. This is the one that shows the changes. So we just kind of run through what we've changed because I think you all saw it before. I was just saying these blue underlines are not changes. Go a little larger. Those are links. So this is all as it was. So we start with a general statement about greenhouse gas emissions and climate change, and then we talk about the two international sort of statements, whereases, and then some Connecticut points. So talking about some actions and decisions Connecticut has taken, 4 of those. So if anything, I think when I wrote, or I didn't write, I think I stole most of this, but when I created the first draft, I remember thinking, I'm going to just go ahead and leave a bunch of stuff in for now. We'll probably cut some stuff out. I don't know if we need all 4 of these sort of history for Connecticut, but we'll leave them in for now. I think they do kind of show a clear interest in the topic and some progress.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they show, repeated studies that back up what you're trying to say.
Yep. And I think the two international ones are both relevant.
Yeah.
And then we have a general statement about a climate emergency requiring comprehensive emergency mobilization. So creating some urgency here. Same with the next point, that it's going to require unprecedented levels of public awareness and engagement. And then I took out the next bullet, sort of shaming the United States, and replaced the next with the text that I think Stonington was using, or closer to what Stonington was using. In my view, we really need to have something in there that talks about the inequities of climate change and how, in addressing it, we want to be aware of this environmental justice issue. And so I like the version that Stonington had done. And this, it may not be verbatim, but it was based on that.
That's pretty close, yeah.
I'm glad you have that.
Yeah, I think that's, it'd be a shame to not. So, and then the sort of transition statement about Simsbury having exhibited strong leadership. And then, so the first point is on first resolution, or is unchanged. So, and here, it looks like Tom is off, or is Tom still on? He's still on.
I'm still here.
So we changed, and again, this is all for for discussion. But rather than create a new entity, we're saying really taken out the second bullet, and it's now charged the Clean Energy Task Force with creating a climate action plan.
That's great.
There's a limit to how many people can be on the Clean Energy Task Force, though.
There is.
How many can be on it?
There are limits of representation from political parties as well, which does kind of hamstring us sometimes. Like we have an opening now, but it has to be somebody from the Republican who is affiliated, is registered as a Republican. And then, Tom, I know there's an issue of only the town manager can direct other department heads to do anything. So rather than say, we hereby direct them, we've said the town manager will direct. So we're resolving that the town manager will direct department heads and committees to report to us with their plans. I don't know if that fixes that little quandary.
Well, I think it makes the bump a little easier. I think the challenge that we are going to have is how do we get the town to buy onto this at a point where we are dealing with other strains, both economic, and with that comes staffing level strains.
Yep.
So the questions that are going to come is who's going to actually do this, and how much time and effort is it going to take, and is that going to take away from some of the other core responsibilities that the town sees? Understanding this group here sees this as a core value, and I don't disagree with that, but that's the hurdle that you're going to have to overcome.
Yep. Yep. And I think what we can't make this decision tonight, but once this task force is comfortable enough with this document, then I think we want to start to have some informal conversations with our selectmen. So I think, and that those discussions will take some time, and I think this will go through some changes. But hopefully we can. Well, we're not going to get it by the end of the year now, but hopefully in January we can get a version of this that we're ready to then go have these conversations.
And I guess where this gets to be a challenge, because for example, direct all town department heads. So included in that is yours truly, which is an easier sell. But now it also includes, for example, the chief of police. And he may not have a background to necessarily come up with how is he going to reduce his greenhouse gas emissions. So I think that's part of the bridge that we need to be thinking about with this document.
So on that, in that regard, could this task force come up with utilizing other documents from other towns that have done this, a guiding document on some basic emissions reductions methodologies, so that it doesn't seem like, oh my gosh, there's nothing out there that I can use and I'm unfamiliar with this and it's not going to work?
Well, I think, I guess, and it goes to kind of a big philosophical issue. Do we want guiding documents, or do we want to get down to the point where we're going to say we're going to reduce our vehicle mileage or our fuel mileage or the amount of gas we use in our vehicles by X? Because a few years ago, this committee, we were looking at the townwide energy plan, which was more focused specifically on energy use. And I don't know if maybe blending those two concepts would make this a little bit more measurable.
What, back to bullet number 2, the climate action plan, is that the document we're talking about? That would guide the department heads to make those efforts. Would the climate action plan be the source of truth that would give some examples of how they would begin that drawdown?
I think that might be just that. And so, again, this may be something where, again, it's in stages, but under bullet 2, it would be, and really this committee would be facilitating and working a little bit with Ray, and we could come up with, how much fuel do we use? How much electricity do we use? We have those numbers. Mm-hmm. Then we also have information on what buildings use them and how much. And I think that would be helpful in setting realistic goals to target. And again, I think we have short-term, very hard, realistic goals that we can set, and then I think you have larger, long-term aspirational goals.
So how I read this chunk of the page is this is a sequential flow. We declare the emergency. We come up with a plan. We ask the town to implement the town staff to implement the plan, and then we liaison with the community to do their best as well.
Yeah, I think that's good. I actually, when I first saw this, I was thinking more, we'll get input from all the department heads, and then we'll use that to draft the action plan. But I think what the way you read it, Phil, makes a lot more sense. So maybe we need to change this. The town manager will direct all department heads no later than 6 months after receipt of the climate action plan. So that would give them the guidance. Because yeah, Tom, you're right. I mean, we're asking them to do something that's just not been in their remit.
Right.
And while we have the charge to create the climate action plan, we can partner with our other community organizations, to draft the right climate action plan. I don't know if we want to put any partnership verbiage in there, or that's, this is more on the accountability side, probably.
Yeah, that feels like a logical approach. So, we have our energy plan. So we have a basis for starting this to draft. But I think what we're saying here, let's declare an emergency, and let's give what is now a climate action plan a higher profile. Right? We have been charged with creating this.
So it's like your strategy document, and then you have something much more tactical, like a hit the ground, get to work plan.
Yeah. So the climate action plan would be more
tactical. That's going to be these are the enablers that we see. So you've outlined a future, and we've got discussions to revisit that as well, but you've outlined a future vision, a strategy for where we should be by X date. And that's high goal, like those are target that's target state. So those are the goalposts. But how do you get there? And this plan can sync up to the strategy and maybe be the breakdown, the key enablers to enable us to achieve those strategy components.
Yeah, and I think if you include the economics next to all of those points you just made, Phil, then you've got hopefully some areas where you can save money, some areas that'll need a capital infusion, hopefully from the state, that will then ultimately save you money. And that would be a key part of the climate action plan is the economics of how this is going to be paid for, what is the savings in the long run, in the medium term, and in some cases the short term.
And that could be our kind of cost benefit or guidance for the prioritization of those items as well.
Yeah, and also people that might not be familiar with this approach to emissions would say, well, I might not totally get that, but if it's going to save us money, we'll do it, so yeah.
Well, the other part to this may be that there's an acceptance that the plan is not going to save us money, but perhaps it would make Simsbury more appealing to the people who already live here and to attract people to move into Simsbury. From my end as a DPW director, I sometimes see part of my job is to, sell Simsbury. And when somebody's relocating to the Farmington Valley, I want to make sure they come to Simsbury, not Avon.
So
or heaven forbid Granby or Farmington.
So maybe it's not always, an economic criteria, but rather a performance indicator that you can then do some type of retrospective evaluation to ensure that the plan, like you're hitting those planned goals rather than, moving targets.
Yeah, you'll have to have benchmarks, and the benchmarks are not movable. But I do, once you get to the point, if this passes and everything, the plan should have that economic evaluation of the proposals. And that's, again, CCL can help you with that as just citizens and in the case here, residents that have an interest in this making your town better. So, we have a lot of access to data that may fill out some of the data you have.
So go ahead.
Just one more quick question on that second bullet. That charges us with the authority to develop this climate action plan. Is there any responsibility for ensuring the, other than a partnership, I mean, more written in here, I guess, what's the role of the Board of Selectmen? Is this it? And now we're going to go off and come up with our own plan and march to our own, cadence, or do they have more of a direct input into that process?
I think where this would, playing this forward, saving money, reducing energy in the buildings is generally an easy sell. Okay. We've done a lot of that. That's easy. At the point that you want to say that we're going to no longer buy diesel trucks for plowing snow, that's going to be a tougher sell, because I'm going to tell you we're going to have to have that infusion of capital funds Roger was talking about so that we could be set up to run off of natural gas. It's all new tools, all new garage, all new everything. Then when you go down to the police station and tell them they're no longer going to run gasoline powered cars, you're going to have Ray's laughing. You're going to have a harder sell, and the Board of Selectmen, as well as the other committees in town, the Police Commission, Parks and Rec Commission, to a certain extent, the Board of Finance, are all going to need to be on board with this. Mark, you were on mute.
Yeah, I just had to take a call.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right. It was quick. Yeah, these are really good questions. I wouldn't think our climate action plan would get super tactical, super detailed, right? That's what we're asking the department heads. So we would want to set some broad, first of all, the strategies. It's going to be electrification. It's going to be conversion to electric vehicles and heat pumps and efficiency, and maybe set some targets. But then I think we want to leave it to the
That makes sense.
to the department heads to. I mean, as you say, Tom, you guys know what a diesel truck or an electric, version of some of these is going to cost, and
Yeah, and they might come back to the task force for discussions, advice, sounding boards, things like that, which you would want to encourage.
Yeah.
Well, again, part of this is getting that level of buy-in.
Yeah.
And again, everybody, has their own mission, and it's going to be a challenge, I think, to move people off of status quo, move departments off of status quo.
Do we want, so the bullet, what is 3 right now, has this target of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by, and then there's a placeholder in there right now, 80% by 2030. If we have that anywhere, I think we want it in our climate action plan.
Yeah, it's almost like bring this bullet up just one more level.
Yep. And I guess, does the resolution need a target like that, or is that what the climate action plan should work out?
I think it should be in the resolution. What it does is it authenticates it a little bit more. It also says, this is a real thing. So by passing this, you're realizing what we're actually aiming for.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I agree. What do you all think the target should be? I think there was a suggestion for 90% by 2030. That seemed a little aggressive to me, so I put 80, and I've seen 80 by 2030 somewhere.
Yeah, it's in a lot of different cities. It's 70, 80, 90, 95 even in some places. 80 is fine, 90 is fine. Once you get close to 80, you're going to find that parts of the last 20% are really hard. But also some of them will be easier. They'll be self-fulfilling prophecies. Once, for instance, in transportation, the police department says, well, some of the electric cars, we can get 500 miles on a charge. So with the data in your police department, and I used to be on a county board where I was on the law enforcement committee, so I saw data like this. They knew how much time a car was driving versus idling versus parked. And so whenever a car is parked or idling, you could plug it into a charger. And so you reduce the perception that electric cars won't always be ready for you to go. So those are the kind of things that can be discussed when you start talking to the police department about, well, what does it mean to have electric cars? What are the problems? What are the worries, founded or not founded? But those kind of things, I think you're right. With a climate action plan, you can have very strong guidance in there. And with the right language, the department heads and the sheriff will feel like, well, they're letting us do this, but they're giving us some really good stuff to work off of. You want it to be a friendly, supportive, constructive document.
Anybody else have any thoughts on what the target should be by 2030?
I think that I mean 80% is certainly it's a good target, and I think one of the things that it does not take in account is converging technology, and what we might experience over the next 5 to 10 years that would drastically either increase the timeline to get there or the amount we're able to achieve. And I know this isn't directly related to the number, but I'm just wondering if there's something more I don't know, more iterative that we can do with the climate action plan rather than a one-time thing. Maybe it's something that's continually revisited and it's current, it's up to date, it has the latest. I mean, the list of technologies that are going to be available in some form or another, and what's the most effective at one time or another. I feel like that goalpost move. It's just constantly moving, and I don't know how we go about capturing that, but I'd like to capture that somehow.
Yeah.
Well, you could say after the 80% by 2030, or better with technological improvements. Or I mean, you could address it that way.
That's 80% from what date? Are we going to make this from the date of the effective date? From those emissions?
Yeah, that's sort of implied, but yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, that should.
That's usually they specify usually a date or a year, I should say. And I assume, Mark, this is like a live document that's continuously updated, I assume, by the town manager?
This resolution?
No,
The climate action plan.
yeah, I mean, it's a spreadsheet that's continuously updated, right?
I think that will be the Clean Energy Task Force doing that.
Yeah,
Right.
Clean Energy Task Force.
Was there talk of getting an energy advisor, a part-time individual that could earn her own salary by saving money? Would that be one of the tools to achieve this?
Yeah, good point. I think it was my takeaway to get back with a sort of a job description or what roles we think that person would, and I have not done that yet.
You've been busy.
I think this is really good input on the order of things. That the Clean Energy Task Force will draft this action plan. I think we can put a timeline on ourselves, maybe 6 months from adoption of this resolution, and then it goes to the department heads.
So I was going to say, in terms of timing, right now is the budget cycle. So if as a task force, you are interested in anything budget-wise, which would be for the budget upcoming beginning in July of 21, now would be the time. And if you let me know, I'll bring it through the process. We use a consultant energy manager from time to time. Years ago, part of the argument to kind of bring Ray's position on board was to pick up some of these energy projects, but unfortunately, we've also then laden him with sidewalks and recycling and a few other things that just take away. And it's always a challenge, within the day-to-day of finding the time. I have a background in energy management, but again, it's unfortunate, but our day gets filled up with other things. And rather than a job description, I would strongly recommend that we would start off more with a consultant relationship. I think that's easier to sell to the Board of Selectmen.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, Tom, why don't I follow up with you? I'll just draft a couple of tasks that I think that consultant could do. And I think it's important that, particularly at first, that we do it in a way that we demonstrate that this person is actually earning their keep.
Yeah, I think the other part is even, and where I could see some assistance even from this group is some of the energy projects we're doing. Again, we need to make sure that we champion those. We're just finishing up a lighting retrofit for a number of buildings, which, if you can imagine, we put in all new lighting at the skating center, and it's going to pay for itself in 2 years, which sounds great, except I'm going to say the other side of that is how awful were the lights in there for the past several decades.
The opportunity.
Finally got rid of
comes.
those, Tom.
Yeah. Similarly, we put in the solar array a couple years ago. So we're pecking away at it, but it's also important. And I appreciate these larger aspirational things, but when things get done, I think we all have to work together to make sure that we recognize that we're just scraping the top surface of what can be done.
Yep, absolutely. I just sent, I don't know if you saw the article in the paper, Tom, about West Hartford putting solar on some more schools, and they're going to save $250,000 over the lifetime.
No, I didn't see that, but I think part of that also is reaching out to, I think the schools are target rich when it comes time for
Yeah.
solar.
Yep. I sent that article to the Board of Ed, but I think somebody who could just draft those RFPs and guide that process could easily, pay their, be yielding savings that would make them worthwhile. So I'll get something to you quickly on that, Tom.
Okay.
Well, that was very helpful. So what else we got? And I think to the point of monitoring this plan and its achievements, I think item 8 kind of covers that. Or maybe we can expand that a little bit to not just measure, so to benchmark progress.
Yeah, I think it's 6. It's the one that says 7.6. Also addresses that. And maybe if it's making the resulting climate action plan an iterative document that serves as the foundation upon which the town of Simsbury, and that would probably cover it for.
Yeah, maybe shall be updated annually.
That's a good idea, especially with technological advances. On number 7, it says, make the resulting climate action plan the foundation upon which the town of Simsbury develops future priorities, legislation, policies, plans, budgets, and actions. When you say future priorities, future legislation, is that what that means? If so, there's probably a lot of pieces of laws and policies on your books that would clash with new policies. So you might want to say with future or revisited priorities and something like that, just to open the door to remind people that, well, we have a ordinance, for instance, that we passed in 1940, and it lets everybody do something that's keeping us from achieving the goals that the departments have come with in terms of reducing emissions. See what I mean?
Yeah, develops and reassesses priorities.
Reassesses is great. That's a great word. Yeah.
Tom, is bullet 9, is that going to fly? That we're asking the Board of Select, so that this was resolving that the Board of Selectmen will encourage the Board of Ed. I mean, what's the best way to bring the Board of Ed into doing this? I mean, can they be one of the board, what was it, the department heads that respond? We can't dictate to them, right?
But what I would suggest is that you need to bring this to them exactly the same as you're bringing it to the Board of Selectmen.
Like do a separate resolution, have the Board of Ed declare.
Right. The Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen are parallel. The Board of Education does not have any obligation to report to the Board of Selectmen in any way. They're equal and separate.
Yeah.
With a slightly bigger budget.
So we need 2 of these. Yeah.
Is there an opportunity here to circumvent to not call it necessarily Simsbury High School, but maybe like the youth of Simsbury, to, tab, I don't know. I'm trying to, I'm wondering if there's other voices within town that are not captured simply by engagement in Simsbury High School. And maybe that also just opens up other venues for reaching out for community interaction, particularly when it comes to, the younger generations.
Yeah, Phil, if I could, I believe in some ways, maybe, again, with such big issues within this document, getting the kids engaged is already something Sherry's been working on with the Sustainability Committee. And she has set up the student, I think she called it like a student task force. She has set it up in such a way that she was clear to say students who live in Simsbury, because there are a number of the students that were interested went to local or regional private schools.
Yep.
So, but again, I think your bigger pull on this is if you can get the Board of Education to agree to this, getting the students involved is a light lift from there.
So bullet 4 here talks about engaging the residents. Now, it doesn't mention youth, but does that kind of?
And would it be as simple as, engaging our residents, looking for a wide range of inputs, including young
students
persons
within Simsbury or young persons, right? And then that final bullet just becomes about engaging with Board of Ed.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it even in here if we're doing a separate?
Well, if you think you can get it, I would go up to, I think it's the first or second bullet, and ask the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education to endorse.
All right.
So the Board of Selectmen is charging this Clean Energy Task Force with this, and then maybe, you could have it as 2A, that the Board of Education will support this initiative, however you want to word it.
Yeah, we don't have Board of Selectmen here, but
I'm sorry, Board of Education, I'm sorry.
But we can have it signed by both the Selectmen and the Board of Ed, maybe.
Yep.
So it's one document signed by both. That's going to be like getting legislation from the House to the Senate and then go back and then joint resolution. And
you're going to have to whip the votes. And
nobody said any of this was going to be easy.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, there's certainly, if on the federal level, with some of the things we've been hearing for the new administration, they are talking about making money available for this kind of thing. So depending on when this comes before, is it the board? We might know more about that. That being said, I think you've got a great fundamental document here.
Mark, I have to go. So thank you for inviting me over to this.
Yeah, great seeing you.
Great seeing you also.
Enjoy the holidays.
Have a great holiday, guys.
thank you, you too.
You too, Ron.
Yep. See you, Ron.
Tom, this was the article. I'll put the link in the chat. But it just
Wow.
kills me every time I read that. No, it's up here.
All these flat roofs.
Well, it's funny. I mean, if you remember a couple years ago, I think the first time we went out with a solar RFP, what we did is we provided a list of all of the buildings in town and said, which ones are you interested in? And they came back with all the Board of Ed buildings. We said, well, you got to pick at least a couple town buildings.
This is King Philip's School. And it says somewhere down here, $250,000. So West Hartford expected to save over $250,000 over the life of the project. So if we could get a couple of these, if we had a consultant to help us to just drive that forward, that
a lot of money.
Yep. The other one,
And not that it's not a big number. I actually would have expected that to be a higher number.
yeah,
For Sandy Hook, for their solar panels, they're saving 1.5 million over 10 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, The other thing I wanted to quickly bring up, and it's relevant to this topic of saving money. There's this new initiative that has come out from, I think it's Energize CT, and it's in draft form. And so there's a chance to comment, but it's another opportunity where we could basically get some funding. So what they're planning to do is provide grants to towns for doing campaigns. I'll just jump ahead a little bit here. So if we do sort of efficiency campaigns or clean energy type campaigns, we could guess. So they're in this draft document. They say the whole program is $150,000. We have some issues with the draft, but there is a chance for comment. But I just throw it out there as something that's very new. We'll want to sort of say, I'll send this around to everybody if anybody wants to comment. But again, it's another thing. If we had someone who wasn't a volunteer and maybe was able to coordinate or putting in an application for that, again, there's this, and I'm sure there are many other opportunities for grants and. Well, I think that discussion helped me. I think on our climate resolution. So on climate emergency. I'm gonna go ahead and quickly, before I forget all the good comments we got. I took some notes, but I'll try to redraft that and get that right around to folks. And hopefully at our meeting in January, we can get it out of the task force and start to have some conversations. I don't think there's anything. I'm just looking at our agenda. Well, maybe a couple things. The residential efficiency campaign. We did a short Simsbury Community TV program. I don't know if anybody's seen it. With Eric Wellman and myself, do a little intro, and then Mitch Gross from Eversource. So, and I think, Tom, we now have permission to do a Facebook page.
That is correct.
Who's going to set that up?
Ray?
Okay. So let us know, Ray, when that's live, and we'll at least put some stuff about this efficiency campaign up there.
Yeah, Carrie was just checking with the higher ups to make sure it's set up the right way, and then once she gets that information, we'll set it up, and then we can start putting content up.
We're doing two, one for sustainability and one for us, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Just to elaborate on what Ray said is Carrie in my office, she's just working to make sure our Facebook page is set up the same way as the other town Facebook pages. In the past, and I didn't know this, you can set up a Facebook page in such a way that it is going to give you headaches down the road, which is currently what's happening with our Public Works Facebook page. So, and the other thing is, if we chose to in the future, we could have our meetings run through a Facebook Live.
Yeah, there are some real audio and video limitations with Facebook compared to Zoom, though. Just so you know, there's impedance and compression stuff that happens with sound that can get pretty weird. But you know, it's an option. Yeah. You have to buy some additional plugins to make it all work.
So the other thing that was on our agenda is our energy plan. And I think, you know, we drafted it in 2019. We got around to a bunch of departments and got some feedback, but it still hasn't really gone into action. So I think we want to revise it. I just reached out to West Hartford because, you know, we have this template for an energy plan. We actually created it, and then we shared it on with other towns. And I know Branford, Middletown, West Hartford, and I think I guess it's us, are actually using this template. West Hartford actually has taken it with their part-time energy manager and really taken it to a new level. Just the formatting and the information is really, really good. They're actually meeting tonight, and they're going to just confirm that they're happy sharing that with the world. So I think as we update our energy plan, we should now kind of benefit from what they've done with ours. And so we're in this upward spiral of improving energy plans. So once we have permission for that, I think everybody has it. If not, I can resend it. But I think we want to, the main thing we have to do is look at what initiatives do we want to do in 2021? I mean, one of them, it looks like, is going to be the climate emergency resolution and drafting a climate action plan. But there are other things. So when we got the group together, let's have that discussion. And last thing I can think of is, and it's hard with just a couple of us on the task force, but we have struggled with these meetings not being able to be held at their original time. So going forward, Thomas suggested that if we do Wednesdays or Thursdays, then we're safer and less likely to have to reschedule.
I recall, based on our conversation at the last meeting, that the group was pretty open to that, especially if it meant we can have a stable time. I personally, that would be great. 6:30 is a great time. I have no qualms with that.
Yeah, me too. All right, so we'll get that around, and we'll do a doodle poll or something. So, all right. Anything else?
Just so that you know, we're continuing to pursue endorsements. It's working its way through the Simsbury United Methodist Church. The small committee has recommended to the church council to endorse. And we have now a contact with the Simsbury Rotary, and we're setting up a presentation there. And there's a contact that can hopefully help me get an audience with John Hampton, which would be a really good person to have supporting the effort. So
if you're having trouble getting, he's very responsive, but if you need any help getting through to him, let me know.
Oh, good. Thank you.
He's been very supportive of, he actually formed, he created the Clean Energy Task Force.
Yes, I heard that.
Yeah.
He should be very responsive, very proud of what's being done.
Yeah, no, John's great. Good. Anything else? Well,
Great
Susan
stuff.
and Roger, thanks for joining us.
I really, you guys are a real brain trust here. I really enjoy the discussions and what you're talking about. It's really great.
Oh, but you helped us a lot. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Well, and have a safe and hopeful holiday.
Yeah, you all as well.
And a better new year, a happier new year.
Yeah.
Yeah.